So I just got done watching the first of 3 tell-all episodes for season 16 of Sister Wives. And I haven't seen one of these tell-all episodes, but this was super intense. And I have lots of thoughts, lots of opinions, and I'm gonna try and organize them into 5 kind of global buckets. So the first is Robyn, who this episode really wasn't about, but she just drove me nuts because every clip of her was her crying and saying, this is not what I signed up for, and kind of woe is me. One of the first scenes of this episode was about Christine going to everybody and saying, look, I don't feel welcome in your homes. I don't feel like we're connected as a family. I feel like people hate me. I second guess myself. I'm not comfortable. And Robyn is just sort of appalled by this idea, which I buy kind of 50%. And the other 50% of me goes, Robyn, how much effort have you put into creating a relationship with Christine? How much effort have you put into pushing Kody to have a better relationship with the other sister wives? It feels a little bit like Robyn has the advantage of having the relationship with Kody, but she's not willing to use that advantage to create better connections. Instead, she just aligns with him and goes, what the hell's wrong with these other sister wives? Why can't you make it work? And to me, I think she's a little bit responsible for not facilitating better relationships. So that's Robyn. The next piece is Kody, who I thought came across like an incredible a-hole. People online think he's a narcissist. I don't think he's a narcissist. I've done a video helping people differentiate between a-hole and narcissist. I'll link it up here. He's not a narcissist, but he is incredibly ego-driven. He is incredibly selfish and absolutely abusive. When I have watched, over the last 10 years, when I've watched this show, I've always thought, look, it's their faith, and, I've never been in a plural marriage, so maybe this hierarchy and this sort of controlling style that Kody has, maybe that's part of their religion. And the more I think about it, the more I think that's a miss. I don't believe that Kody's scripture encourages him to be directive and domineering and controlling of his wives. Disempowering other people is not part of his faith. His faith wants him to be the head of the table. His faith wants the wives to respect him. But that doesn't mean that they have to be subservient to the point that they'd have no free will. And I feel like as I've watched this season in particular, Kody has become more and more controlling. It's his way or the highway, and I think it's incredibly problematic. I mean, I think if you just look at the level of anger he showed on this episode, the language he used, follow my rules, why won't you comply? I mean, if I asked my wife to comply with my rules, I promise you I would not be here to do this YouTube video. So to me, it feels totally unreasonable in a relationship to act that way. All right, and that brings us to Meri and being catfished. I felt like in this tell-all episode, the narrative was spun that Meri was a victim of being catfished and sort of woe is Meri, which I think is insincere. To be catfished, you have to be online. You have to be looking for relationships. Meri was certainly doing that. There were good, I would argue there were reasons and maybe even good reasons for her to be looking for connection online. But the reality is she stepped out of the relationship and was looking for connection with other people. And while she may convince herself and she may say that it would be against her faith to step out of the relationship and that she wasn't intending to do that, she was definitely putting herself in the position to step out on Kody, at least emotionally. And so I can imagine, I think that Kody's reaction to that, the hurt from that, I think is genuine. When I used to work as a marriage and family therapist, I will tell you, I worked with a lot of couples that had infidelity in the relationship, and it's devastating, and it creates irreparable damage. And one of the things that I think is a mistake oftentimes is the person that steps out comes back and goes, hey, I'm really sorry. I am so sorry. My fault. I need to work on me. And can we resume the relationship like normal? And the reality is you can't. When you step out of a relationship, when trust has been broken to that degree, it's very difficult to resume a normal relationship after that. So I think we should honor that she did hurt Kody in that way. I think that, and she's to blame. Like, she's to blame. She did that. All right. Now, why did she do it? That's the sort of the last thing I want to talk about is the way that Kody has treated Meri over the last 10 years. So for 10 years, Kody has not had sex with her, no intimacy. She stepped out. She was catfished 7 years. So there's 3 years where there was zero sex. And Kody withheld the sex because he didn't feel like they had a good relationship. She wasn't following his rules. There was no connection there. So he just withheld the sex. And then that's what he does with Christine, right? Recently, Christine doesn't follow his rules or guidelines around COVID, and so Kody withholds sex. And I believe, although it wasn't on this episode, he's also withholding sex from Janelle. So that's Kody's move. What Kody does is he goes, I am so hurt by you, I couldn't possibly have sex with you. So you're hurting both of us because you won't comply. And then what he does is he goes over there and sleeps with Robyn. So he is weaponizing sex. He's withholding it from them, punishing them for their behavior or their lack of alignment with him, and then getting his needs met somewhere else. Robyn is enabling him to do this. And I absolutely don't believe the line that Kody said where he's like, I can't possibly sleep with these women because they've mistreated me so much, right? There's been so much betrayal. It would be emotionally traumatic for me to sleep with them. I simply don't believe that that's true. I don't believe that Kody having sex with these women would be emotionally devastating for him. I think he doesn't want to have sex with them because it would be giving up power. And he likes to have the power. He likes them to feel bad. And it just makes me feel so proud of Christine for getting out of the relationship. I mean, I know it's a massive sacrifice for her because she's so connected to the family. She raised so many of the kids, but why should she live the rest of her life in a completely loveless marriage? And I feel so bad for Meri, who is, I mean, Kody has said, look, we would be divorced if it wasn't for my faith and that I would, in my obligation to her, we would have divorced a long time ago. Oh, good for you, Kody. So because of your faith, you are keeping her stuck in a loveless marriage for the entirety of her life. Like, I just feel so bad for her, and I know that she doesn't have the, at least right now, I don't think she has the self-esteem to leave and go out on her own. And she all that she has in her life is the family, and so I think she can't lose that. You can also imagine that she's someone who stepped out a little bit of the relationship, and she felt connected to somebody, and she was drawn to that person, and then got the rug pulled out from underneath her when the person was catfishing her. The trauma that must have had to her sense of self is absolutely, I imagine, devastating. And then there's Janelle. This episode really wasn't about Janelle, but to me, Janelle has the personal agency. I think she's gonna bail, would be my guess. So anyway, that was episode 1 of these tell-alls. There's 2 more coming. I'll post videos on those also. Like and subscribe. Thank you for listening.